Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. I really don't like lawyers. I've worked with them enough. I deal with them all week long, many of them at all different levels. And my general opinion about the profession, even though it was started with good intentions, is really a scam. Most lawyers in the legal profession in general, it has turned out to be just a big money grab, and they complicate the law in ways that only specialists can interpret, and they charge a lot of money for that interpretation. It's kind of like fortune telling. I want to know my fortune. Okay, you pay some little money to a fortune teller, and they give you some advice on how to go buy a pack of gum, some ridiculous thing. Lawyers have really caused a lot of trouble in the profession, and I don't like to see abuses of it. I certainly didn't like to see abuses of it in the Roger Reynolds case in Butler County, Ohio, when lawfare was used to bring him down. Although looking at it, he caused a lot of that trouble. He brought a lot of it on himself in the way that he conducts his affairs with other people. And that was something that Michael Ryan pointed out in his statement when he was talking about a recent issue with Cindy Carpenter, the current commissioner of Butler County, because she ended up giving the finger to some employees at an apartment complex that she was trying to negotiate some rent for a family member with. And so Michael Ryan's running for that office, the commissioner seat, which I support him. I like Michael Ryan a lot, and I'm all fine in politics to let people just kind of go fight it out and let good ideas prevail. And Michael Ryan wanted to distinguish himself as people who get in these offices and they let the office go to their head and they start abusing their power, start throwing their weight around, which is how Roger Reynolds got himself in trouble legally. And he pointed that out in this press release, talking about both commissioner candidates, how they have difficulties relating to other people. And for that, Roger Reynolds recently sent a cease and desist letter to Michael Ryan, which I was able to see. And it reads just like all the ones I've ever received from lawyers. When you do free speech kind of stuff and you're out there doing media and talking and you're dealing with public figures, I get those kinds of letters all the time. And it's amazing how uniform they are. It's like the lawyer lazily takes off the shelf the intimidation letter they send to somebody they're trying to cease and desist. In this case, Michael Ryan was simply pointing out that, like Cindy Carpenter, Roger Reynolds used his power in office, was convicted, which he was. He was found later, to have it retracted. But the problem is he got himself that trouble to begin with. And when you work with other people and you're finding that you make enemies with all these people, that's a alarming trait. And Michael Ryan pointed it out. And for that, Roger Reynolds, because he's very sensitive to the poor court proceedings that he had to go through, wanted to distance himself from it. And that's one thing, to come out with your own statement and say, this is my opinion about it. This is what I say about what I went through, and have a public discussion about it, because that's what voters want to hear. But instead, you go to a lawyer and say, cease and desist to speak. And again, it's the same authoritarian issue where you start using legalisms, whether it's happening against you or you're using it against other people, that causes so much trouble in the world. And I don't like to see it happening at all. I certainly didn't like to see Michael Ryan get a cease and desist letter. Reading through it, it's the same form letter that lazy lawyers give to everybody on behalf of their clients. And it's supposed to intimidate the recipient into saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get drained of all my wealth and resources and defend myself in court. And in the end, it all gets tossed out, but you spend a fortune trying to defend yourself. And the intent of the letter is to scare you into behaving in a way that you're afraid you're going to get dragged into court. And my advice to everybody, it's what I do when I get them, which is a lot. When I get them, what I tell people to do is go represent yourself in response on the letter, because the letter insinuates that because you received a letter from a lawyer, you have to go hire a lawyer to respond to it, because you're not qualified to answer the question. You're not qualified on your own to talk legal talk with all the other legal people. And I can promise you this, in my case, I could speak legal talk with any lawyer there is in the world. There is nobody that I've dealt with anywhere that has a higher reading comprehension than I do on these matters. So I quite enjoy lashing out at very pretentious lawyers. And so in the case of this Michael Ryan letter, there's nothing special about it as far as uniqueness of the legal case, the easy answer is you reply back, I don't have to listen to anything you're saying. This is a Sullivan, New York Times versus Sullivan, Supreme Court case, 1964. Has not ever had a change in it. And if you're a public figure, you don't have a case. There is nothing about anything that's been said in a press statement or in a campaign statement that Michael Ryan has said that's going to get him in trouble with some pinhead of lawyers. So you can easily respond by just simply saying, you don't have to answer with another lawyer or hire a big bunch of legal counsel to go out and talk this issue. It's simply, in the end, it's the Sullivan case with New York Times, 1964. That's all you need to say. That's the end of the story. And every lawyer in the world knows that's a problem. Yet they send these stupid letters out anyway, thinking they're going to scare everybody into submission, and that candidates can hide problems they have behind hiring a lawyer to intimidate their rivals. And that just doesn't fly. That's just not how it works. So it's pretty embarrassing to see that that's the way that Roger Reynolds is going to take his campaign for commissioner, and he knows that it's a problem because, like Cindy Carpenter, they're old faces that have had problems working with other people, and they're exposed on that, and they're trying to put Michael Ryan on his heels because he's a fresh young face that has all the Republican endorsements, got everybody in his corner, and in order to try to wear that away, you got to do something to kind of shut him up or scare him into submission, and that's what that stupid letter was all about. And I don't like to see the game being played like that. I didn't like seeing it played that way against Roger Reynolds, and I certainly don't like to see Roger Reynolds playing it against his rivals. If you want to go out and have a campaign and run a campaign and see if the voters will pick you, well, go out, make your arguments, and have a debate and see who wins. But trying to keep people silent by making them afraid or intimidating them in some way through some legal pinhead isn't the way to do it. That's not a good strategy. So my advice to Michael Ryan and anybody else that gets those dumb letters from all those pinheaded, stuffy, overpriced lawyers who are next to worthless in the scheme of things, quote the Sullivan case. That Sullivan case is going to be out there. If you're in a public office or you're running for a public office and you're putting yourself out there as a public figure, it applies to everybody. Unless you go out and maliciously do something to taint somebody's reputation, no lawsuit in the world is going to sustain itself against that Sullivan New York Times case. So in this case, Roger Reynolds was convicted. So the statement, the cease and desist letter that was put out to him was basically to refute that it ever happened, and it did happen. Roger was convicted. It was overturned on appeals later on. It took years, but the main problem with that whole case was the way that he got himself in trouble to begin with, and the way he used his office to influence matters. There's ways to do it, there's ways not to do it, and he did the things you shouldn't do, and he got himself in trouble. It's a personality issue with him, and he got himself into trouble, and who wants to see that trouble going to the commissioner's office? And he's got to repair his brand, do some other things, build his way back into the party, but don't come in there and start lashing out at people and trying to bring everybody down from within just because you want the respect of a public office again. In this case, Michael Ryan's clearly the newest, freshest face for an office like that. We need generational autonomy in the commissioner's office, and there's a whole, really need to rebuild it with people like Michael Ryan and others who can join in off his example. And what we don't need is a bunch of people sending out cease and desist letters and arguments and wanting to pick fights with people over silly little things, playing lawfare, go out and hire expensive lawyers to do things that normal people should do just with basic conversation. We don't need more of that. That's what's caused trouble, so much trouble in the past. That's what got Roger Reynolds in trouble to begin with. And he hasn't learned, obviously, anything from it because he's still doing it. And it's just not the way you go about it. To say that something is false and to try and say that I'm a private citizen and I deserve these private protections when you're running for a public office against someone you can't make an argument against isn't very clever. It just exposes you with the weaknesses that everybody knows are already there. And it's kind of embarrassing. And I was embarrassed to see him send that letter to Michael Ryan. The debate should be the thing for the campaign, not trying to keep people from talking by sending them scary letters from overpriced attorneys that really know when they sent the letter it was worthless to begin with, because the Sullivan case protects Michael Ryan in political disputes that of this kind. When you make statements, if you're a public person, you don't have the kind of defense you have as if you're a private citizen. And Roger Reynolds running for a public office is not protected. Maybe I should charge money for all this stuff. Maybe I do real well if I did like these pinheaded lawyers and charge for advice. But I give that advice for free because everybody should know it. It's not a surprise, and it's certainly not the kind of information that is scandalous and you should pay a lot of money to get. It should be available to everyone who needs to know it. And in this case, it's an embarrassing cease and desist letter from a political rival who isn't doing very well in public opinion, and trying to wear down Michael Ryan with intimidation and fear. And that's just not the way to earn respect. I think people would know that by now. Anyways, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.